So if you look at pharma, for years we've been talking about digital engagement with our customers, changing the way we engage with our customers, looking at content that we do that should be different for our customers. And you know what? We couldn't call on our customers. So guess what? We had to figure this out. We had to figure out a way to digitally engage with the healthcare professional. We had to figure out, because the rep, who was the main point of contact for a lot of manufacturers, was not able to get into the building to see a doctor because they were on lockdown and full PPE, and only essential workers could get into the building. So some of those changes have been dropped upon us, and all of a sudden Viva emails became the big thing last March. Boom, all these emails started going out, from rep triggered emails as they were known, from the pharma industry. And I think gradually, as the pandemic settled in, unfortunately, the marketers have figured out that there are things they need to do differently. And it's on the payer side, we've got the same issue going. A lot of people aren't taking care of themselves. The chronic diseases, they couldn't get into the buildings, right? So, that sort of stopped and ground to a halt. So how do I take the hospital to the home? How do I do remote patient monitoring? How do I make that patient who's a chronic patient do something in the house, right? So I've seen some great little things. I've got downstairs in the kitchen a red bag. It's Mount Sinai at home, or, the home kit. And it's got everything in it. It's a blood pressure thing, there's an EKG, there's a connected thermometer, there's all of the $200 for the whole bag, right? So send one of those to the house of chronic patients, and now you can do remote patient monitoring, right? So really interesting times, I think. So I think we're all engaging and looking at new ways and models and taking advantage that technology was already there, connected devices, remote capabilities, and now using them, actually getting them used in the marketplace. On the health system side, everyone's focused on digital front doors. How do I get the patient back in? What kind of tools can I create? That crappy Epic portal is being replaced, finally. They've been talking about it for centuries, but it's finally being replaced with a user interface that is consumer friendly, that is patient friendly. You can check your bill, you can make an appointment, you can check if your radiology's tests are in, all of those things that we consumers craved. It's just starting to happen now. So that's what I love about this. As you know, Drew, for 10 years, my thing is, if it moves, digitize it. And so finally they're doing it,
Yeah, so there's definitely a ton of money going into the space. There seems to be more and more every day. And I think what you're seeing is a little bit of a barbell right now. So you saw some very late stage rounds get done, growth rounds at incredible multiples. And I think the good thing with some of those rounds is that the playbooks for those businesses have actually already been established, right? So selling to self-insured employers, starting to work with plans. And so it's nice to see that there's actually growth equity to make those companies staying powers. A lot of that is actually in chronic disease management. It's, as Ritesh mentioned, it is going to be a large cost center for us as a country overall. And so finding ways to manage those diseases remotely is a huge area for venture to look at. But on the earlier stage side, where I spend a lot of my time, we are looking at a lot of voice technology as a way for diagnostics, but then also looking at it from the perspective of customer service, right? So are there digital tools that patients will want to use to engage with their physicians? And one of the areas that I'm seeing is people are starting to segment out their digital health solutions into either vertical markets based on therapy, or also like splicing and dicing the patient segments. So I am thinking a lot about, like, how does Gen X want to interact with healthcare versus Gen Z? And it's going to be very different. And so the way that we go to market with these businesses and products are also very different. I would be remiss to say that in COVID, there's been a huge emphasis on mental health. I think there will continue to be an emphasis on mental health.
So in essence, what the biome is, if you take it at the highest level, but most accurate description, It's really Novartis's API into the digital health ecosystem, right? So it's Novartis's ability to connect effectively with that ecosystem, but not just by having conversations and hoping that it goes somewhere, but by actually having it underpinned with a real engine that can help bring those conversations from just conversations to actual solutions that reach patients and healthcare providers that improve lives, right? And so what we focus on is filling that gap, because the reality is there haven't been very many digital health solutions that that have really been scaled appropriately through a life sciences company the size of Novartis, right? There's probably one or two examples, but if we think about how many are actually out there that could potentially be game changing, there should be many, many more. And the reason that there isn't is because there's this lack of innovation process in place that makes it possible for this to happen. And what has occurred with COVID is that there's been a real awakening internally and externally as well, in that folks have understood that this is now a discussion about business continuity. It's not so much a discussion about being innovative for the sake of being innovative, right?
Right.
There, in the past, we had conversations with folks within our business, with teams within Novartis, and we were talking about an ROI that had more to do with opportunity cost as opposed to the real reason that we wanted to bring this innovation in, and it's because we understood that in the very near future, not too distant future, but very near future, this would be a requirement in order to be able to engage effectively with the end users, with the whether it be the patients or the healthcare providers, or whether it be to effectively be able to produce therapies that are life-saving, as we intend to do and want to continue to do over the next 100 or 200 years. To me, it's really understanding the differences between the different ecosystems, right? So the reason we have biomes in different parts of the world is because we understood very quickly that the digital health ecosystem wasn't based solely in San Francisco. It wasn't based solely in Israel. It wasn't based solely in Johannesburg. It wasn't. There's a level of expertise, a level of talent, a nuance to each and every single one of the ecosystems that are out there. And so understanding the differences between all of them gives you better perspective as to where you're most likely to find the right solution to solve the right problem that's actually going to be impactful for patients and healthcare providers.
Actually want to just acknowledge, like, what Robin said is really important, because what we see as like a culture in Silicon Valley doesn't exactly replicate into other parts of the country or in other parts of the world. And so the fact that their biome program is very adaptable for the local market is very, very important. Like, even for me, talking to a team in Israel versus in Australia versus here in the US, in New York versus San Francisco, the deals are different, the company DNAs are different. And so that is really important.
I firmly believe this year is open up a whole new set of innovators. I'm already seeing it. In the last 2 weeks, I've met with companies that are not taking data, but overlaying data on the EHR of social determinants of health, right? This person's economic capability for, you're going to prescribe this medication to them real time. I can tell you whether they can afford it or not, and whether you should give them a copay card. Never would we be able to do that before, but with this law now, you can do that, right?
That's great.
And also extract data. So I think there's going to be a whole new bunch of innovators coming out here.
So what I'm excited about is that it gives innovators a chance to bridge the increasing gap in healthcare access.
Yeah.
And we saw this in COVID. Robin and I have talked about it before. Like, there's just so much inequality in healthcare right now. And if you can actually, like, software is the cheapest, most scalable way for you to distribute healthcare. And so if this law now makes this available in kind of like a less predatory, less punitive way, so that we can deliver that, and if the data can now be unbiased and it can be trusted, I think it opens up so many opportunities, and that's what I'm excited about.
It means simply that now that we have, we'll have much more access to this data, we need to be real good stewards of that data, right? We need to make sure that we're taking into account the use of that data. We're very transparent with with patients and those who have that or who own that data, and that we continue to push that forward. Now, what it means in terms of the way that we work within the biome, it means that we will have data, or we could potentially have data available for us that will allow us to run these proof of concept studies much more quickly, and be able to make quicker decisions with more with cleaner data as to whether something is ready to move forward and to scale, whether it needs to be adjusted and made fit for purpose, or whether we need to pivot from it.